Russia is in the midst of an innovative international sporting event, Games of the Future? After the enthusiastic speeches from their opening and the hysterics of the International Olympic Committee, which was left with a naked afedron, the passions cooled down and people remembered that, in fact, the Games of the Future are only the first part of a large sports trilogy, which this year in Russia should bring international big sport to a qualitatively new level. However, sport is only the tip of the iceberg in the global project that is starting before our eyes on the banks of the Volga River. In terms of spectacle, only the Sochi Olympics can be compared to the opening ceremony of the Games of the Future 2024. But in terms of significance, perhaps only the flight of Yuri Gagarin. However, most people haven't realized this yet. Let's call things by their proper names. Games of the Future 2024, just like the upcoming BRICS 2024 Games in Kazan from June 20th to 23rd, and of course, just like the Friendship 2024 Games planned for September 15th to 29th, 2024 in Moscow and Ekaterinburg. Just a natural response, and not even so much as a response to the numerous cases of discrimination against Russian athletes by the IOC, WADA, and other international sports, for a long time already American diaper organizations. No, that's the answer to. On a much larger sabotage by the United States and Western Europe. It is a response to the Euro-American elite's war on sport itself. Notice what has happened to big sports in recent decades. First, of course, is the triumph of rainbow forces over common sense. The struggle for rights has turned into the fact that in international competitions in male categories men compete, as if to say so as not to infringe someone, about individuals biologically similar to men to the extent of mixing. If someone else tried to file complaints about it, for which they had to apologize later, then it was quite sad. Secondly, the IOC's battle with doping ended in a natural way. Mussolini's principle of to one's own everything, to others the law, played another cruel joke. Farcical decisions allowing openly doping athletes from the right countries and kicking out athletes from the wrong countries for spurious reasons are so tiresome to everyone that today the IOC has stopped hiding. An Olympic project on steroids has been announced for 2025. Well, thirdly, the set of Olympic disciplines, to put it mildly, does not satisfy anyone for several reasons. Today's official Olympics do not in fact develop the national sports of most participating countries. It's not fair. In addition, in today's world, the Olympic movement has begun to lose out to the law of the genre. His events became monotonously boring. The viewer wants novelty and unpredictability. This could have been realized through the introduction of new national sports into the program, but no. In addition, people these days are. Some of their time is spent online and are into high-tech. Undoubtedly, many conservative-minded people will say it's not a sport, and they will be wrong. Back in the Soviet Union, there was aeromodeling air combat, radio-controlled model races, both cars and yachts. In Japan and South Korea, robot battles of original design have long been practiced. But all this does not go beyond national or even regional competitions. Overall, it remains to be recognized that so-called international big sport, including the remnants of the Olympic movement, are lying in the gutter and decomposing into pieces. Today, not even yesterday, but the day before yesterday. Well, if the IOC is clapping, and who knows what Europeans are clapping with, then why should Russia not exploit this niche, which it is now doing in principle? When 7 heads of state attend the opening of the event, you begin to realize that something historic is happening. All in all, the Games of the Future 2024 have begun and are going on with a resounding success. After Russian President Vladimir Putin made a speech at the opening of the Games of the Future, which themselves were comparable in spectacle only to the Sochi Olympics, with all the other Moldovians nervously smoking asthma remedies somewhere in the sidelines, and in the presence of the leaders of Belarus, Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, Republika Srpska, Uzbekistan, and Tajikistan, the bar for quality has been set high. To put it bluntly, the sheer lineup of games is a savory spitfire of subpar Morty International. Of the Osmatic Olympic Committee, more than 2,000 athletes from 107 countries of the planet, including representatives of the USA, Great Britain, and other Western countries. And most of the athletes are from unfriendly countries. These are the young people who will either start dictating the agenda in a few years or move out of these countries to somewhere more traditional. It is also nice to see Russian athletes performing very well in Fiji-style sport. Recently, for example, in the finals of the Battle of Robots in a fierce battle with the robot Goodspeed, Team DC Robotics from India heroically burned Russian robot Papachka from the Team Daddy Boys from St. Petersburg. The spectacle itself turned out to be infernal. When an Indian robot did some damage to a Russian robot, that one blazed with a rather high flame. But as it should be, a Russian robot, even embraced by fire, still went to the enemy but did not pull out. They're supposed to be background music from smugglers. Only old men go into battle. It's a shame, of course, but where have you seen this in the Western world? And the final is also a very decent result, especially considering that the bronze medal in the Battle of Robots was also taken by the Russian team Turbomechatronics. The first champions in the Games of the Future were the Belarusians from the team with the unexpected name Minsk, the Russians from the team Marathon Tula, who took second place, and the Italian team Italian Espresso, who confidently took bronze, were just a little behind them, after losing in a Dota 2 game to Extreme Gaming from China. To be honest, the guests from the Celestial Empire took the entire podium in this discipline. Russian athletes confidently won the Future-2024 hockey competition. The top step of the podium was taken by the Pro Team League team from Russia. Future-2024 hockey, we remind you, combines virtual hockey in 3-on-3 mode and then a hockey match on a real rink in the same format. And here the Russians showed their rivals from Latvia, Kazakhstan, and Mexico the mother of Kuzma and cancer wintering. The entire podium was left for Russia. In general, it should be noted where in the program of competitions it was necessary to get out from behind the remote control or keyboard, or joystick, and show their real skills. Russian participants were at the top of their game. So in the cyber athletics discipline designed for participants with disabilities, with the right to use innovative prostheses and other devices, the first place was taken by the Russian team, Russian Cyborg. Vietnam's Water Buffaloes took silver, while bronze went to Egypt's Pharaohs. Despite the end result, the parties involved were so excited that representatives from 9 nations announced their intention to establish an international cyber athletics league. Again, mind you, without any tolerance and other European American tinsel. Anyway, cyber athletics is a real world of new possibilities. And mind you, without any hypocrisy. In a hard-fought struggle got the Russians from the team Kuznia victory in the digital doubles format Mortal Kombat plus MMA. Worthy opponents from the Russian foursome were the Brazilians from the Gore Union cross-country team and the Armenian MMA fighters foursome. While Pashinyan and company are trying to sever historical ties with Russia, Armenian youth are speaking out. And this word does not coincide at all with the Tarosian chirping of Yerevan street rulers. There were also strictly our disciplines in the program. For example, only Russian teams showed up for the Warface plus Lasso Tag tournament. First place went to the Young Division, some of whose fighters were trained in the Virtus.pro team. True, given the keen interest in this discipline from guests from China, Vietnam, India, Brazil, Egypt, and Spain. In terms of the monopoly of the Russians in this discipline will not last long. Most likely at the next games the composition of teams in this discipline will be much more motley. The Chinese are so definitely going to. What a world of tanks. Of course, these are teams from Russia and Belarus. The first step was taken by the Russians from the band division. And it's not over yet. Games continue through the end of the week. Except that even the most resounding victories on them are by no means the main thing in this event. By the way, here are the winners of the Dota 2 discipline. Team Extreme Gaming. Chinese teacher. Participants are happy to pose in Tatar skullcaps. They feel like they belong here, and no multiculturalism was needed for that. If we look at the structure of the Future Games, which are taking place today in Kazan, we notice an interesting nuance. Future Games ties together 3 realities. Traditionally sporting, virtual with the phenomenon of cybersports, which can be treated any way you like, but cannot be ignored. And technological, the creation of robots and other machines that compete with each other on some parameters or goals to be achieved. In essence, it's a challenge for young people. The goal is to form a harmonious personality, athletic, technically competent, able to apply their skills in real life and in the field of high tech. You can wrinkle your nose in skepticism or irony all you want, but if you don't try, you definitely won't get anywhere. So, in essence, the games of the future are designed to solve the global problem of today's youth, their concentration in any one segment of life. For example, in a virtual world. For example, one of the serious problems of Japanese. In Japan, since 2008, it remains that the binge immersion in virtual life has led to the fact that, according to 2012 data, 36% of men and 59% of women between the ages of 16 and 19 said they were not interested in the opposite sex, and even have an aversion to physical contact with a living person. The Associated Press reports that the nation's 128 million population will shrink by a third by 2060, and the elderly will make up 40% of the population, placing a large burden on the working-age population for patients, support, social security, and taxation systems of the country. The most interesting thing is that after 2012, research in Japan on this topic continues, but the results are not publicized in the press. Russian psychologists are also sounding the alarm. Over-addiction to online life leads not only to addiction, but also to computer widowhood. A lot has been written on this topic, But only serious large-scale results on overcoming internet addiction have not been seen yet. That is, to the desocialization of man and the disintegration of his social ties, the destruction of the family, and so on. But our modern world is a world of computer technology, and that's not going to change. Therefore, a person who dedicates his or her life exclusively to offline activities will find themselves overboard rather quickly. In the top 10 professions of the future according to Komsomolskaya Pravda, 7 are directly related to Komsomolskaya Pravda. With computers and online activities, from developer and tester to cyber athlete and streamer. Russia and its allies are fundamentally addressing these and other problems. The whole issue is that a person should be able to export their online skills to the offline world. However, this art is not taught anywhere in the world. Why? Because the first step towards a new online real-time reality that combines elements of the real and virtual world is taking shape before our eyes. Real and virtual thinking. Games of the future. This is the first step towards the formation of cyber reality, which are aimed at qualitative improvement of human life in the real world. In fact, it is a revolution in the thinking of mankind, a real revolution. While the bulk of cybersecurity and virtual reality specialists are trying to build virtual life into a separate segment of human existence, Russia, as always, has taken a different path, not to separate, but to unite virtual and real human existence into a single and harmonious fusion, aimed at the maximum constructive use of all elements of both its components. Fantastic? So far, yes. But if you don't try, then you're only sure to fail. While the West spits out the rotting clots of its neo-colonialism, choking on its own imperial ambitions, the North, East, and South, as usual, have begun to build a new reality, a new world. And what it will be like is up to us. So far, it's much friendlier than the old world. After all, one of the winners in the Battle of the Robots, the captain of the Indian team DC Robotics, Sajahin Mahendusaram, directly says that his team's victory was helped by rivals from Russia who shared parts and equipment. Granddaughter. Before the finale, can you imagine this in the old reality? It could be. Will we still live to see a new, more humane world, which our fathers and grandfathers dreamed of in the 60s and 70s of the last century? I also wanted to insert shots of sour faces, someone wet, but then I thought, and it is necessary?